Good morning, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. I think I have one of the most, I was looking at the titles of all the other speakers, and I think I have one of the most boring topics of all of them in the agenda, but I'll try to make it fun for you, okay? So my name is Samir Abdullah. I am leading the Smart City effort for DO. 2 years ago, we were selected by Dubai to be the strategic partner to launch their Smart City program. So we've been on this journey for 2 years, and I have some slides to show you what we've accomplished so far, and hopefully how we can also garner participation from the rest of Dubai. So I'd like to start off with a little bit of a regulation and how it got started off here in Dubai. Okay, so before you get started with a concept like Smart City, you need two important things. You need strong leadership and vision, which we're blessed to have that in UAE. So we have very strong leadership that always pushes us to achieve new milestones and new goals. So this was quite important, one of the key factors that drove us to Smart City as a concept and to go for it in a big way. The other thing we need is a strong demographic trend, which of course Dubai is famous for because it's a very big metropolitan city with a lot of representation from many different countries in the world. Okay, so those were key ingredients for us to be able to launch such a big project. We'll move quickly through. A quick review of what got it all started off and made it a very formal process in Dubai. Okay, I'm not sure if you've heard of Dubai Data Establishment. Dubai Data Establishment was established by Smart Dubai government and Smart Dubai office under the leadership of Dr. Yunus Al Nasser, and he's leading this effort. And one of the key things they did is they published the Dubai Data Law, right? And what Dubai Data Law did is opened the or clarified the demarcation of data, which is one of the key ingredients of building a smart city program, right? And I would encourage everyone to go to the Dubai Data website, and they have a Dubai Data manual, and you could probably review that. One of the items there in the Dubai Data law is the classification of data and how it's to be used. So they have defined shared data, open data, confidential data as well. So it's a good read for someone who is in the data field. But it's a strong, basically a necessary ingredient for you to get started. The next thing that I'd like to show you is Dubai Pulse. Dubai Pulse is a website which is a data portal for the city of Dubai. And we have data represented from different entities of Dubai. Currently it hosts open data, but eventually we will have shared and confidential data as well published on this website. And then I will also tell you how we in DO are using this data as well for our own purposes and also for Dubai as well, Smart City. Moving on, these were the challenges that were provided to us. So the Smart City program that we embarked on, it had to have certain impact for the city of Dubai. And we were looking at impacting specific, so we were given 4 pillars and 6 dimensions. So if you see, primarily we're focusing on areas where we can have the maximum impact, okay? This was these are the headline points that we were supposed to use to sift through the different options we had to focus our investment on. So what is the Smart City platform? So the Smart City platform is really, before you get started with the cool part of Smart City, you need to go through the boring areas of Smart City, which is you have to build an infrastructure. You have to build a infrastructure which is able to cater for the computational speed that you need now to compute data at a very high speed, as well to store data, massive amounts of data that you need from the city. So And then enable the government agencies to then build services on top of that, right? And experiences on top of that, and eventually allow the government as well as the citizens and residents of the city to build applications on top of that. I'll tell you what it means in the subsequent slides. So these are examples of things that we are aspiring for, and some of them we already have today as well available for the city. So if you see in terms of dashboards and analytics, we want to have as many dashboards and analytics representing different services in the city. We'd also like to see, I don't know if you're familiar with Dubai ID. So I think everybody probably is aware of Dubai ID. It helps you access 600 plus government services. So we're building on top of this feature that's already available in Dubai. So I'd like to focus on IoT and platform as a service. So I think we're all going through a lot of digital transformation. Each of you probably are getting disrupted by all these new technologies that are coming in, whether it's big data, IoT, and you guys are trying to figure out how do we apply this in our day-to-day ICT environment. Well, the city is doing the same. So how do I apply these disruptive technologies in providing better services in the city and from the entities, whether it's municipal, whether it's utility, and so on and so forth. So these are also included in our Smart City program with the City of Dubai. I'd like to quickly go through a few topics before I can show you what we were able to produce over the last 2 years. So one of them is IoT. We're expecting a lot of adoption of IoT, a rapid adoption of IoT across many different industries. There's a lot of synergy in terms of key industries like retail or aviation, manufacturing. These are industries that have a strong affinity to IoT technology because you need a lot of telemetry data, you need to have a lot of feedback, and then you need to make decisions in a short time window as well. So we see a lot of that. However, basically entities like DEWA also need to adopt IoT in order to stay relevant in the future because they need to have smart metering. Even, for example, DHA, Dubai Health Authority, they need to have remote monitoring as well in order to make sure that they issue the proper certification, they can do remote patient monitoring and so on. So IoT is actually quite a fast-growing field as well. And you can see a lot of prediction in terms of, this is one from GE, a study that was done by GE, but you can see a lot of predictions in terms of the potential for IoT business in the world, and the numbers can vary from hundreds of billions to trillions. This is a little bit dated, but the recent studies are quite large. Cities today, whether it's sponsored by government or whether it's sponsored by private enterprises, cities today are going to adopt massive amounts of IoT. Okay, so IoT as a technology will be one of the key technologies that's going to disrupt everything. I think if you guys recently, if you go to, you'll see a lot of this today. So if you go to the malls here, you already see sensors in the parking lots that are trying to provide a feedback on the occupancy rate of that mall. And then that allows the operations manager to make on-the-spot decisions on redirecting traffic around the mall. So those type of things are already there. Slowly you will see that creeping into your experience as you go about the city and consuming city services. So we'll see a lot of that increase as well. Reaching a point where you could probably, if the application is written for it, you could probably reserve your parking before you even go to the mall so that you don't have to spend a lot of time looking for it, right? So these type of services are enhanced by the IoT system. And we see a lot of the adoption happening, especially in areas and places like Dubai who are early adopters of technology, okay? And then also the massive amounts of urbanization that we are experiencing. We see the cities growing very fast. We now have the concept of megacities in our world today, and all of these cities are not really healthy places. I don't know if you guys are aware of the recent events in New Delhi in terms of the pollution that's happening in New Delhi right now. So that's actually a quite an acute example of what's going to happen to cities if we don't basically control the rapid growth, and if we don't adopt new technologies. You will basically overwhelm the environment that you're in. Yeah. And I just kept this slide to show you that we were actually talking about, if you look at the lower middle, we were actually talking about air quality in India and China a few months ago. And we were thinking, because this is a recurring occurrence and they can map out for the last 3 years what was the pollution rate of Indian cities and Chinese cities over the last basically few years. And it's becoming an acute problem. That was just for a little bit of drama to show you what's happening there. The last report I read was if you breathe the regular air in New Delhi, it's equivalent to smoking 40 cigarettes a day, right? Just FYI. So if you're planning to go to New Delhi, I would wait for maybe for the next season, or the monsoon season. The air is cleaner. Anyway. So smart cities, right? So we were challenged by Dubai, and Dubai does not like to do anything small, as you are aware. We have all of the biggest, largest, longest, and so on. So when we were awarded the project, we were asked to build a platform for running smart city solutions and smart city programs, and help the 42 government entities that are available under Dubai government to adopt the disrupting technologies. So this was the challenge that we were given. And the question is, do you start as a greenfield or a brownfield project? We decided to go ahead as a greenfield project. So what is the Smart Dubai platform? It's actually called Dubai Pulse. Yeah. What do we do with it? What is the actual intention of this platform? The real intention of this platform is to collect data, analyze it to the nth level, to the nth degree, and then basically generate actionable insights. Whether it's a decision you would like to make within the time frame of, in real time, for example, whether you'd like to make a decision real time, whether you'd like to make a decision in days, weeks, or months, all of these decisions that you make, we want to support that with actionable insights that we get from data, okay? And this is something that if you look at the entities today, they themselves are struggling. I mean, one of the examples I could probably share with you is any decision that is taken by the leadership in terms of a macro economy, if they take a decision, in order for them to understand how long and what was the impact of that decision, it's about 3 months. There's about a 3-month gap between taking a decision and then trying to realize or understand what was the impact of that decision. So the challenge eventually will be to shorten this window as much as possible, as much as the data will allow us to do so, okay? This is just a few numbers. Eventually we're expecting to have about 25 petabytes of city data on the platform. Sorry, I can't share with you how much we have today. But there are about 42 government entities, hundreds of initiatives, and thousands of use cases. So these are the aspirations of the city today. We're basically 15 months into the platform, okay? And really one of the things that we embarked on is we are using the best of breed technology. However, you do understand, whoever is in this field, that a lot of the innovation is not in the best of breed areas. You don't find a lot of the innovation or the speed of innovation in the traditional technology vendors. I'm not going to name any names. But open source, for example, is rapidly progressing, right? So open source is rapidly progressing, and the level of innovation in open source is very high, right? And we wanted to take advantage of that, and we wanted to benefit from that. And that's what we did. So but however, open source has its own issues, right? You cannot take an open source and then qualify that immediately as a production ready platform, right? You need to have the necessary support once you go into production. You need to have the SLAs that you can guarantee to your consumers and so on. So there are issues with open source. However, we do want to benefit from open source because the rapid innovation that's happening in open source is really what's allowing a lot of the capacity and processing and use cases to be realized today. Okay? That's what it looks. That's what it looks like in a summarized version. So we have an infrastructure layer. The infrastructure layer is the wires, is the wiring and the appliances and the IoT platform and really the traditional things that we've been doing for many years till now, right? You still need that connectivity and you need the hardware. Although the hardware is now agnostic, it's generic, it can come from any source. However, you still need the heavyweight, tangible assets to be in place before you can do the real cool things on top. Yeah, and then there is the data layer. So in the data layer, you need to have your Hadoop cluster, right? So Hadoop is really the main data lake where you would have all your data sitting there. On top of Hadoop, you would provide access to this layer to the analytical tools you would have. So all of the analytical tools will then share the or basically get quota managed into the Hadoop layer and then start generating or applying different hypotheses that you would have on your data. So once you have this hypothesis applied to your data and you get the insight, once you get the insight, then after that, you're able to then generate an action on that data, okay? One of the key areas that we had a lot of basically soul searching is security. A lot of these technologies are quite bleeding edge. So the developers usually don't consider the security features of these solutions because they're still working on the core capabilities of these technologies, right? One of them is Hadoop, although Hadoop has come a long way now in terms of security, and you find actually quite good enterprise versions of Hadoop now. But again, the surrounding Hadoop, all of the other areas, if you really go in depth into how secure they are, these technologies don't do very well in terms of security. And we received 1,500 requirements from Dubai, from DESC. So DESC is the Dubai Security, basically so Dubai Security Committee, and they're responsible to issue security guidelines to government projects. So yeah, we received 1,500 requirements from them, and this was in the beginning of the project. I'm not going to mention the numerous audits and pen tests and audits, again, internal and external, that were generating more security findings. Anyway, so there's a lot of things that you have to do. But one of the good things about it is because we started as a greenfield project, we were able to, from architecture perspective, consider security from day one. So in terms of applying it across the board. Data security as well is key. In fact, we realized that we have to do a lot of development work in order to cater for the Dubai data law. So in the previous slide you saw there was confidential data, shared data, as well as secret data. So these in order for this data, in order for the platform to qualify for this data to be on the platform, we had to do a lot of development work and change the tools and how the tools work to basically make sure that we are compliant with security. Yep. So what do we do with the data? We do these type of things. This is one of the first slides that I'll show you, and there are many slides coming up later as to what do we do with the data, really. So all of this infrastructure that we put together, what do we do with the data? This is a heat map. This is a heat map of Dubai. And basically what we've done is we've broken up Dubai into small hexagons. Each hexagon represents a specific meter square. And then we score the hexagon to find out what is the population distribution at that specific time. Okay? There is a delay, obviously, in terms of when the data is collected to when this heat map is updated. So there is a delay, but we have this heat map, which is something that even in Do we use to understand what is the movement of the population in Dubai. And we can even map it across a day, a week, a month, a year. It all depends on the data and how the data is then, how we are able to represent the data or visualize the data as well. This is crowd analytics. Okay, so what you see here is again a much more, basically an advanced version of the same heat map. We call it crowd analytics. And basically we can understand what are the characteristics of the crowd. And then we can also apply filters on that to understand more about the crowd and how it moves and how it morphs itself across either a time series or basically a geographic area. Okay? If you see, I'm not sure if this has it. Okay. Okay. So we can break it down by male or female in terms of the representation in the crowd. We can also look at the size of crowd. So if you're looking at crowds which are 10,000 people and more, or crowds which are maybe 50,000 or more, you could basically reduce the map to those areas. We can also do age groups, so we can understand where are the young people going to and where are the older people going to and where are the parents heading to. So we can give you a general idea as to what's happening with that population. And then this is the affluence, basically what is the spend. Obviously this is telco data. I'm from Do, so we're using telco data to understand what is the affluence distribution, where are the rich people and where are the middle class and so on and so forth, and which of the geographical areas do they inhabit in Dubai and so on and so forth. Yeah, it can get quite personal. So when you're working with data, you have to understand at some point when you're aggregating the data, at some point you have to make sure you don't overstep, certain cultural sensitivities and so on and so forth. So it can get quite surprising. This is crowd nationality. So if you see, we can break it down in terms of nationality as well as hours of the day. So on which hours of the day, which areas of UAE are heavily populated. I've got the same one where I've selected so this is telco data, obviously. So where are the high spending subscribers and where do they usually go? So this is a heat map of that, filtered. And then the next one is I've selected, if you see here, I've selected the population which is basically from Middle East, right? So all of the countries of the Middle East represented in UAE, all the nationalities in the Middle East, and where do they inhabit? So you can see the map changing and showing you a different heat distribution. Also, this is for 6 p.m. So if you ever asked yourself, where are all the people from the Middle East at 6 p.m., that's where they are, all right? This is done for people from Western Europe. So if you select the people from Western Europe, and we've selected the whole day. So you can see where the people of Western Europe are usually hanging out. Yeah. This is city flow. So this is a different type of data. Okay. Here we actually took the data, which is open data from the basically Dubai DIWA. So this is move in and move out. So every time you you unsubscribe from DEWA service from a specific location, and then you subscribe back in another location, and we know your ID, so we can trace your movement, right? And so over 3 years, we took all of that data and we did a map of where are people moving at different times during those years. So we have the data for 5 years. So we just selected the 3 years, and then if you can see we've basically put some shapes around Dubai in different communities that are identified in terms of the identification that was provided by Dubai Municipality and DEWA. And then we can show you in terms of move in and move out, and the numbers that are moving and moving out, the migration over time period. So what is the migration, moving and moving out, and also the types of migration. Are they residential, are they commercial, and so on and so forth. So this type of data is really what's helping us profile the city. So we profile the city, we understand the city behavior. It helps people who are working for the ministries and for the entities to support their planning process and to support maybe RTA for their road network, or maybe tourism for their, basically whatever experience that they'd like to offer in Dubai, and so on and so forth. Electricity and water consumption, right? So one of the key topics in Smart City program is energy management. So that's how energy management is really how Smart City got started. I don't know if you guys remember, but a few years ago, it was all about trying to make the environment more efficient, and people started talking about energy management and how we can make it more efficient, and we can do more with less, or with instead of focusing our investment on production, try to see if we can make our utilization more efficient, right? So when they looked at that and they looked at energy efficiency, it slowly evolved into the concept of smart cities, because you can apply that same concept across all systems and subsystems that support city services, and that would really make it more efficient for people to stay in the city. So if you see here, this is all of the areas that are marked in color are identified, and then we can see the total consumption of water and electricity over the years and months and areas. So go to the next slide. I can tell you in terms of the total evaluation, that's the average Burj Khalifa water consumption right there. That's a lot. This is a breakdown in terms of industry, mosques, services, and residents. So that's broken down there. And then here's the basically the utilization of the services across the years and how they trend across the months. Yeah. This is one of my. I'm getting close to the end of my presentation. This is one of the exciting things that we're doing with Dubai Municipality. So Dubai Municipality is responsible to issue certificates of compliance to different service providers. This is basically an abattoir. This is the abattoir in Dera, okay, where most of the meat gets processed and stored in the freezers, and then that meat then gets transported across Dubai to different places. So this facility needs to be certified by Dubai Municipality. Before our project, Dubai Municipality did not have a way to basically monitor their compliance, because they had specific temperature guidelines that they have to follow for the freezers where they store the meat. And there was no possibility for them to monitor this. So what we've done is we've basically used the IoT platform that we have, and we've installed about 16 sensors across the entire facility. And now Dubai Municipality is able to monitor remotely, as well alert if the threshold is breached, the temperature that is maintained within the freezer, as well as the ambient temperature that is there in the hallways, as well as the energy consumption based on the temperature that's on the outside in the environment. So this is something that we've just got started, and it has a lot of application in terms of basically entities, government entities, who are willing to remotely monitor services and facilities that they are certifying, right? And then they can monitor the compliance, and then they can revoke any sort of certification privileges that are issued based on non-compliance. So this is something that is really relevant for UAE, because I'm not sure if you look at the reports, the number of cases of food poisoning usually increases in specific periods of the year because of the energy required to keep the food healthy across the whole supply chain, right? And sometimes the system breaks down. And when the system breaks down, it has a real impact on people's health. So these type of things will increasingly get better for us as the city adopts the new technology and is able to remotely monitor and understand which part of the supply chain is not performing well, and then immediately go and address that area. Okay? So how can you get involved? Yeah, so this does not work. Usually does not work if the city is the only one that's trying to sponsor this, right? So there has to be a dialogue between the city and the inhabitants of the city, right? So this is really one of the key activity that needs to happen for us to benefit from this. So what Dubai government is doing is putting all of their data online. And this data will then help businesses make decisions in terms of where to locate their business to get the best ROI for their investment, and those type of decisions. Also day-to-day decisions as well, if that is your business to do so. So these type of things. However, businesses themselves need to share their data back to the city as well, right? So rental agencies or Uber or health agencies, clinics, and so on. So all of these facilities also need to share their data as well back with the city. So we have this feedback mechanism back and forth between the city and the inhabitants of the city. And that's how you make the process more efficient, because in order to get actionable insights, you need to have the data from both sides, okay? Or all sides. There's not really both sides. That's it. I don't know if you have any questions, but it was very interesting, the journey we have with the Smart Dubai office, and we hope to continue. Some of the things that you've seen here, it will be presented in the Smart City Forum that's happening in Barcelona this week. Probably, so they will get the live demo as well of this data and how it's filtered across Dubai, and the heat maps and the live demo of the heat maps. So this will be presented in Barcelona probably tomorrow, day after, by my colleague. So if you have any questions related to Dubai Pulse or Smart Dubai or Dubai Data or Smart City, please feel free to ask me. Yeah.
Question. You know that most of the population numbers, at least the official ones, are from the statistics center since I think 2015, 14. So how are you coordinating with them the difference in data between their statistics and your telco data?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. Dubai Statistics Center, as well as Federal Statistics Center under the ministry, the federal government as well, we've met with both of them. We're in continuous dialogue with them. So in terms of statistical analysis to generate population data, the subject matter expert is Dubai Statistics Center, obviously. However, what we do, sorry, go ahead. No, we do get whatever they have available today. However, in order to make their formulas more accurate, we supply them data back, right? So for us, we are basically the custodian of the data. So what we do is our role is to make sure that Dubai Statistics Center can more accurately predict their statistical models that they have for population figures and population profile of UAE. Okay, and this is the dialogue we're having with them. And we're supplying them data from our subscriber base. So we are half the story. Obviously, our fellow service provider at the Salat is also in touch with them and are also supplying data to them. Eventually, the idea is the smart city platform will have data from all of the service providers, whether it's telco, whether it's utility, whether it's all sort of services. They're all going to feed data in. Dubai Statistics Center will have their own data model, so they'll have modeled their own data that they use to extract statistical information for the population, and then we would feed into that model more accurate data to make their modeling more accurate.
Okay, and what about the protocols for data collection? Is it driven by telecom companies, or are you going to agree on a shared data protocol?
So we have, what we've done in the platform is we've catered for every possible known transfer protocol for data. Currently, the most popular is SFTP, right? Which is easy, everyone's familiar with it. It's a technology that's been around for 30 years. So most of the people are using SFTP today to publish data to us. However, we support web service as well. And we also support real-time ingestion mechanism as well as batch ingestion mechanism. And if it's required, we also have interactive mechanism. So if you want to know, the name of the technology is Kafka. We're using Kafka right now. That's the one we selected for the real-time. And we're using web service and SFTP for batch ingestion. But again, in order to have an interactive experience with the data, we will publish the data. So we'll publish the data as a dashboard, as you've seen, or we'll publish the data as an API. So how could you use the data if you're in private enterprise, for example, right? Have you heard of the company eCar or UDrive? Okay, so there are two companies in Dubai right now. I'll just give you this example. eCar just has cars all over the city, parked in different places. Right? You just go up to the car, you show your credit card, the door opens, and you use the car. And you get charged per mileage, right? And then once you're done, you've parked the car, it charges your credit card, and you're done, right? You don't own the car. Car is owned by someone else, right? So this is the service you have today. How can data make this service better is the real question, right? So the way that data can make the service better is if I, as a city, I publish transportation data, and this transportation data has a scoring mechanism for every individual as a driver, right? So it would score a driver based on his historical safety, how safely he drives, and his historical driving profile. I would apply a score to that driver, right? So now, every time a driver comes to this eCar service, and he puts his credit card and his personal details, eCar can decide whether to issue the service to him based on a score. So it can say, you know what, I am risk averse. I'm not going to allow anyone less than a score of 80 to drive my car because my insurance cost is very high, and the accident rates are going high. So I'm not going to issue service to a driver that has a very low safety score, for example, right? Or I will, but it will be a bit more expensive because I will tag on or make additional insurance mandatory for this specific subscriber, right? So those type of things. Rental agencies would love to have transportation data so that they can make their services better for the city as well.
Sorry, one more follow-up question. Thank you so much, Samir. I really enjoyed your talk. I have like two questions. My first question is, this Dubai Pulse, is it available for everybody? So can everybody play around with it?
Yes. The intention of Dubai Pulse is to have a portal for interaction between government leaders as well as citizens and residents. Today what we have is open data that is accessible without registration. But if you're a private citizen, you can register as a private citizen or a resident, and then you can have access to other data that's available, or you can request access to additional data. The intention is once we do data aggregation and we create data sets, those data sets will be available for purchase on the website for-profit organizations who would like to basically access that data. Yeah.
And the heat map you were showing, what's the policy decision that DO makes based on this heat map?
Okay, one of the practical decisions we have to make is where do we put up our cell towers, right? So every year we spend a large portion of our budget putting up cell towers to ensure that our signal is, so this is a very basic decision that needs to be made. And previously it used to be done using surveys. So we used to send out 20, 30 cars of people with antennas waving in the air, collecting basically signal strength data across Dubai. So this was the way that we used to do it before. And we used to have a lot of contractors that would help us collect data. And you can imagine the logistics around sponsoring that type of an activity. So what we did later is we realized that we can collect a lot of information from our own MSC and mobile core. And based on the data, once we generate the map, it helps us take care of 80–85% of those decisions. Yeah. Very good. If you don't have any, I don't know if you had a question, no? Okay, very good. So I'll be here for maybe a couple of hours. And then please let me know if you have any additional questions. Thank you very much. Thanks.